You know, I would, because I'm a prankster, so I love, you know, when she's all nervous and stuff like that, you know, why is she changing and everybody's trying to, you know, not supposed to be in there. Then I would like peek in and like, but peek in a way that she knew I'm peeking in. You know, and then she'd be like, yeah, get out! Right, so, yeah, I used to fool around with it like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's not like, you know, but it's not like, but, you know, I mean, mother was more of a, you know, she was a very kind of strict Korean mother.
Right.
So they're very rigid, you know, they're like, you know, if the clothes don't fit, or, you know, if the clothes don't match, or if they're not good for the image, and it's all about, you know, image, and it's all about honor.
Right.
So Eastern culture is very much like that. And she's not the only person like that. There's a lot, most Korean and Asian women are like that.
Right.
They're a lot about images, especially if they're from a, you know, a high-profile family.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, but I was, you know, she would always try to dress me up in polo outfits and all this. I hated that stuff. I was a skateboarder. I dressed in raggedy clothes. You know, that drove her nuts. I grew my hair out long, you know, when I was younger. That drove her nuts. You know, and then then I was trading with Buddhist monks. That drove her nuts. You know, so I would never want to be put in the box of, you know, of that kind of upper class preppy kid.
Right.
I hated that. That was like my absolute nightmare. All my friends in high school were minorities: black kids, Hispanic kids, Italian, you know, kids.
Right.
Like my best friends, you know. So I did not get along with that whole preppy white elite sort of elite culture.
Right.
It was very foreign to me, you know. But sort of in that realm, since we were a high-profile family, there was the pressure of trying to always put the kids in that box.
Right.
Because we were, you know, schmooze with the elites, you know.
Right.
But I always, for me, I never, my spirit just cried out against being put in that box.
Yeah. Actually, I'm very interested with the thing you just said.
Yeah.
You know, the father chose to have you grow up in America,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been thinking about that a little bit, because, you know, what if you had grown up in Korea? You know, how did growing up in America, like even what you just said about knowing minority kids, maybe you wouldn't have known it.
That's right. You know,
right.
And that's absolutely right. We would just been like the normal, you know, big corporation kids. You know, like these spoiled brats who, you know, just and super elites. You know, I kind of rebelled against that when I was younger. You know, I did not. That's why I started, you know, training like, you know, like rough martial arts and combat martial arts. And, you know, you're training with street fighters. You're training with, you know, professional fighters. You're training with guys who fight in rings, or at the time cages, or bare knuckled. I mean, these are people you're training with. They're not what you would call the polo elite.
Right.
You know, tattooed all over from head to toe. These are the guys you're sweating on. You know, sweating with. You know, you know, and so it was a totally different culture, and so I kind of. I don't know, you know, just God led me away from that kind of elitist culture that everybody's trying to force us into.
Right.
Especially the ladies, they like to force us into this kind of culture. So
Right.
Make the boys all, you know, sort of gentlemen, all this kind of thing. And I am a gentleman, but you know, like I'm so grateful I was able to experience that subculture.
Right.
Like subculture of, you know, all these fighters and all these, you know. You know, people who are not considered to be, you know, elitists or elite members of society, you know, but they're actually tremendous in like their fighting spirit, or you know, in their skill, and in their passion for studying, you know, martial arts or whatever. You know, so I'm so grateful that I was able to have total exposure and training within this kind of subculture.
Right.
And that was like really a huge, I think a really great benefit, something that we would never be able to have in Korea. That much exposure to, you know, minorities and things like that, and or these kind of subcultures, you know, like these. Fight Club, subcultures.
Right.
It just doesn't fit in the sort of rubric of the big elites. And so that, I think that was really important, and so that I think spiritually God kind of like allowed me to go through that, because that really allows me to understand freedom and responsibility.
Right.
Why centralizing power around the elites is so dangerous.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous, and it's always consistently through history proven to be dangerous.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean that was like I think a big benefit growing up in the West. The person that probably had the biggest influence on me was Jin. He's the one who had 1 year. He was 1 year above me, and he trained me for like a year to be able to do well in school. I was always like a terrible student, which is the reason why I could not get into anything in Boston. I wasn't part of the Boston group, and the whole thing there, because I was just so bad in school, I couldn't get into anything, So after high school, he basically trained me for 1 year to do studying, and like how to study well, how to excel in academics and that. But it was more than that, because he really invested in me, and he really cared for me. He was very compassionate, even though he was 1 year older. He was not abusive,
Right.
And so he had a very big impact on me when I was younger. He was very, and then of course, I think all my brothers and sisters, they contributed, invaluable ways to my own development, things like that. So, we love them. There's a lot of things that people don't know about the whole situation, etc. And it's easy to just jump on them and things like that. But in the end, there are also people that have to find faith too.
Right.
There are also people that have to find faith in Father, whether they believe in Him or not. But of course, that's when we were younger. Of course, when we were older, I think the most, obviously everybody knows Kuk Jin Hyung is really, for me, he has a massive impact on me in terms of my own understanding of economics, about free markets, about understanding what freedom is, how valuable freedom is. Freedom Society, her father was so incredibly ecstatic and delighted when he was doing Strong Korea, Strong Japan, Strong America.
Right.
Like trying to help these countries become free again, and like watch out for these other powers that may come.
Right.
And so father was absolutely delighted about those kind of, the identification of archangel as government as archangel. Right. That was a first. But father was so excited about that, because he had been persecuted constantly by the archangel in a centralized format, which was government.
Right.
Wherever he went, Japan, Korea, North Korea, South Korea, the U.S., wherever it was. And so when I shared that with father, he was like, oh, wow, and he was so like, father was so excited about that. And I think Kuk Jin Hyung has just such a genius in terms of understanding organization, understanding a culture of an organization, understanding honor and integrity. He's a real warrior, so he abides by the honor code. So I mean, he in terms of leadership, Kuk Jin Hyung, I have learned so much from Kuk Jin Hyung.
Right.
As an adult.
Right.
So as an adult, I think when we're younger, there's probably some other siblings at different times, but as an adult, learning from Kuk Jin Hyung and understanding what leadership is, and how to understand organization, and how to understand things like that, which is really a separate field,
Right.
from theology.
Right.
Learning about macroeconomics and things like that. And that is a totally separate field.
Right.
But it's really important to understand.